Good morning, everyone, or is it good afternoon?
Morning.
It's morning. Okay, my name is Rose Mutuku from an organization known as Smart Logistics Solution in Kenya. I'm a founder and CEO of the company, and we deal with raw materials produced by the small-scale farmers and we're going into processing, especially sorghum. So maybe I may say I'm an entrepreneur, but that is someone else to judge. So I'm presenting on the slide. Unlocking barriers to entrepreneurship along the value chain. But before we go into that, I've been wondering, we are all professionals here. We are talking about the farmer, who is the producer, a key factor into a production process. But maybe just a question to pose to all of us. Are we able to identify who is a farmer? Because sometimes I feel that we find there's a confusion between a professional farmer and a rural person who is in the upcountry, and because they don't have another source of income, they go into farming. And those are the guys who keep on maybe breaking the systems, because I believe the real farmer goes for it because it's in their heart and they are in it for a business. So if we talk about commercialization and adoption, then we need to look at professionalism. Who is a professional farmer? Is everybody a professional farmer? I'm not there to answer that, but I think it's something that we should be questioning as we move forward. On entrepreneurship in connection with agriculture or conservation agriculture, I'll just look at a global overview of all this. Historically, we know that economies have been moved by entrepreneurs. Development in the world has been moved by entrepreneurs. The transformation where we are today is done by someone who has done a risk or who's just passionate about something, and they have moved into entrepreneurship. That we've seen from the 18th century through to today, where the Western economies, the European economies, Japan and all that have evolved through primary production or sectors into even tertiary sectors. And someone is talking today about the fifth sector or the fourth sector, where we talk about internet technologies and all that. But we've seen that evolution taking place led by entrepreneurs. These entrepreneurs have been attributed to all this. We can talk about Rockefeller. Today we are enjoying the light because of Thomas Edison. There's Henry Ford, who dared to invent the first car. Even if the wheels were falling off, he was still persistent, and he went on. Everybody was laughing at him, but he's here. Today, we are enjoying all the cars because of Henry Ford. Let's talk about Branson, Tata, and many more who have supported the urban development, the communities, and the whole world through economic entrepreneurship and inventions. So that's how I look at an entrepreneur. Is someone who takes the lead, who takes that first step. I may not define it from maybe the way most of us know it, or from the dictionary interpretation, but I believe that an entrepreneur is a person who transfers, creates, sometimes they don't reinvent the wheel, because, for example, the M-Pesa technology in Kenya, if it moves to another country and someone has brought it there, they're still entrepreneurs, but they're not necessarily have built the M-Pesa technology. That is the money transfer technology. I believe that to be a responsible entrepreneur, then you have to have the overall humanity in your heart, where you're going to impact on the communities you're working on, you're going to impact on the people that you are dealing with, and even the society at large. Entrepreneurship should be larger than the person who is inventing it, larger than life itself. You should leave a legacy, and that's what I believe an entrepreneur is meant to be. But of course, the entrepreneurs of all sorts. There's the AK-47s. I won't go into the bombs. They're also still entrepreneurs. Are they entrepreneurs? I don't know. But they still invented. Is it good for the humanity? Yes or no? Yeah. So it is upon you to say, where do you place the guys who invented the bombs and also the ships and all that? So, agricultural entrepreneurship. Agriculture has driven the economies of the world from time immemorial, even during the time when we can say we used to live in the Stone Age. Agriculture has been there to feed the population. Agriculture was used as a sort of money because at some point it was used as part of barter trade. Today, we've seen industries being driven by agricultural production, from manufacturing, food, non-food products. We've been talking about Brazil and ethanol production here. It's all driven by agriculture, pharmaceutical industries, the leather industries. Most of the things that you're taking here, you know, all these have been driven by agriculture, the timber, everything. All that is, most of the industries today are driven by agriculture. Agriculture also has a lot of support industries that emanate from that create employment and also bring money into the economies of where the innovations or the inventions are taking place. We can talk about the support industries like machinery. If we're talking about CA here, we need an invention of how to go about CA plowing. We need an invention about how to apply fertilizer, how to ensure that everything is done well. That is part of the support industry. The transport industries of moving these goods from one place to the other. Finance, packaging, all that is driven by agriculture in one way or the other. We have seen also agriculture driving the government agendas. Like today, we are talking about policies, regulations, all that. We are here today because of agriculture. And this is what, you know, it also makes the world move round. We've seen a cow moving, you know, to the leather industry and to the other industries that you have never, I'm not going to talk about here, the dairy, the cheese. So that is now the essence of entrepreneurship. That's the essence of innovations. Because there's a guy who thought that a cow skin or hide can be a jacket that can be worn by someone. We are looking at sorghum, for example, today, and other products that are producing beverages like beer. You know, that is still an invention, because without that, then the sorghum will still remain as just food. Look at the vehicles today. I don't know that kind of vehicle there, but we have seen that also being moved. But that's, you know, the fuel engines moving and being driven by agricultural products. So I won't go into the circular flow of incomes that happens when innovation and entrepreneurship moves into agriculture. But we can see a factor of land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship moving from households into farms, into manufacturing, into minting money, I can say that. And that is now what we feel that as entrepreneurs, that is what we need here today. As we are talking about CA agriculture, is it going to take us to the next level? Is it going to create wealth in all the areas of the value chain? Is there innovation that is going to happen? Someone talked here about being sexy in agriculture. Is it going to attract our youth into agriculture? Are we going to see Africa develop to the next level because of agriculture? Or we'll still talk about rudimentary ways of production, and we are stuck in a way that maybe tomorrow, if I'm educated, I don't feel like going into agriculture, because the picture I have of the person who is doing agriculture is in tattered clothes, carrying a djembe. A djembe is an axe on their shoulder. Yeah? Is that the picture that I have in my mind? What picture are we creating in the minds of the people, or the youth, and all the stakeholders that are getting involved in agriculture? If it's driving industries, then why are we talking about the smallholder farmer looking miserable, about the smallholder farmer always not making it to the market? The market is there. What is the disconnect between the market and the production? There's a time I used to work for Diageo International, and I was in the raw material category, where we used to move around and we can't get the raw material that we need, and it's produced by the farmer. But when you go to the same farmer, the farmer is crying. And they're saying there's no market. So where does the market run to, and where does production run to with the industrialist? So that is what I believe that today here we should be asking that question. Where do we make these two meet? What platform do we need? Is it this kind of platform? I won't answer that also either. But that is what I feel that a CA agriculture platform should be talking about. And I believe that with that, we'll be unlocking barriers of production, we'll be unlocking barriers of creation of wealth. Because there are many, we cannot say there's only one way to do it. There are many approaches that we need to use. There's finance in one dimension. Everybody is talking about access to finance, from the manufacturers themselves, SMEs, the farmers. Nobody can access finance. Where are the financiers in all these games? Why are they not coming up? What is making them not play, can I say, a fair game into the stadium? Why are they not in the league? The skills of these farmers to produce, the skills still of the people who are going to uptake, the entrepreneurs. How are you going to attract entrepreneurs into this? What would the entrepreneur want to get into CA? Why should they want to get into CA as an entrepreneur? I myself, we have to promise something. Is it the quality? Is it the quantity? Are we going to bring down the cost of production? Those are our selling points. So as researchers here today, I believe that as CA, as we're going into CA, we need to come up with one catchword. What are we promising the market? What is our promise here? So if it's quantity, what quantities? Do we need quantity that do not conform to specifications of industries? So then, we cannot just look at one dimension. It has to be a multi-pronged dimension, which is still a challenge, yes, but it can be done. The regulatory and the policy environment, are they playing into this game? When we talk about having CA driving the climatic change or the climatic agenda, what does it mean to the farmer? What does it mean to the entrepreneur? So I was just here today not really to present what entrepreneurs do, because that is a very tricky question, but it's just to look at what next. Will this baby be able to hold the dollars? Thank you.
Touched on the background to this paper. What I'm going to do is to pick it up from where she's stopped and then move forward and look at the wealth creation and how conservation agriculture can create wealth. Or are there other factors that we need to look at in the creation of wealth? First of all, let me look at the technology itself, conservation agriculture technology. I think we are now somehow beyond debate as to whether the technology is working or not. Yesterday, we heard a presentation from Zambia where they first started with demonstrations. That was to prove the concept of conservation agriculture in Zambia. After a few years, we all heard that they moved out of the demonstrations and started doing the actual adoption by farmers in the country. At this stage, we are all aware that conservation agriculture, it works. But that is not to say that there are no obstacles. The obstacles are there. The presentations that have been made have talked about the benefits in terms of soil fertility. There are benefits in terms of the yield that you obtain when you use conservation agriculture. And the economic benefits in terms of income to the farmers that practice conservation agriculture. We had a panel of farmers yesterday that attested to the fact that they get more yield and they get more income for their families. There are some who even indicated that they are able to pay for the school fees of their children. There is also an aspect of environmental benefit from conservation agriculture and a significant reduction on soil erosion. So I'm not here to explain to you the benefits of conservation agriculture, but simply to say that we are beyond the stage of proving the concept of conservation agriculture. And I think moving forward, we should be looking at how best we can outscale the technology and what other complementary research activities we can be doing. Having said that, it is fair to say that even though conservation agriculture works, there are a few obstacles and there are a few challenges that we know exist. There is an issue of weed control in conservation agriculture, which is a challenge to the use of the technology by the farmers. There is also an issue of the time between adopting the technology and accruing the benefits from the technology. In some cases, we've seen a situation where farmers adopt the technology. After a few years, they then drop the conservation agriculture. Such experiences have been recorded. So we are not shying away from the fact that there are challenges that occur in the use of conservation agriculture. The low adoption rate, people have always asked, if conservation agriculture is so good, why is it that not many people have adopted it? Of course, the answer lies in so many factors, which I may mention later on in my presentation. In some cases, there have been claims that there is more labor required for conservation agriculture, especially looking at the fact that most of the small-scale farmers are women. So in that area as well, the challenge of labor has been highlighted on conservation agriculture. Not to waste so much time on the technology, the point again that I would like to repeat, the technology works, but of course it has limitations or areas that can be dealt with. But when we talk about wealth creation from conservation agriculture, first of all, what is wealth? The entrepreneurs and the farmers, what they want is to have a certain quantity, amount of resources before them, in terms of financial or material or assets that they can control and can be used to better their lives. Now, how do you create this wealth? Of course, you have to build a stream of income, a stream of resources that you can manage and you can accrue benefits from those assets or materials or resources that you have, and use the benefits to better your lives, to pay for certain goods and services that you require. But if you have to create that long-term stream of resource and asset base, one of the things that you have to remember is to have a careful long-term investment into conservation agriculture. Some farmers who have gone into conservation agriculture and pulled out after 2 years or 3 years, it means the vision is short. Let me give you an example of Brazil, which today is having 100% alcohol used to drive their vehicles. Brazil didn't start 2 years ago. They didn't start 10 years ago. They didn't start 20 years ago. Brazil started that one in the 40s and 50s. They blended their fuel up to 5% with gasoline and alcohol. And then after that, they moved to 10%. Then they moved to 12%. Then they moved to 15, to 20, to 25. After reaching the 25%, Brazil had a problem because the engines couldn't take the blends beyond 25%. That was an obstacle which they met. But the solution was not to drop the use of alcohol in the engines. They had to find a solution. And in the 70s and 80s, they then started working on the engines and introduced what they called flexi cars, which could take any combination of gasoline and ethanol. And today, what do you have in Brazil? You have gas stations. The Americans call them gas stations, but petrol stations in Britain or former colonies of Britain, where you have maybe 5 pumps. 4 pumps are pure ethanol. 1 pump is a blend. and you simply stop your car, you fill in with ethanol, you go to the next gas station. If they don't have ethanol 100%, you just put in petrol, a normal fossil fuel, and the car is moving. But they had to commit themselves to that technology. And they said, we are going to stay with it, even if we find obstacles, we are going to deal with those obstacles. So in conservation agriculture, I would like to submit to you that commitment, not for 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, we need long-term commitment. And the road is not going to be simple. No, it's going to have hurdles. Whenever we meet the hurdles, let's deal with them. Let's not shy away from the hurdles. They are there, and there will be more coming in the future. Now, when you are using conservation agriculture, your first aim is to get a higher yield. That's what you are aiming at. Before you talk about the wealth, before you talk about income, before you talk about how much kwacha or dollar or pound you are going to put in your pocket, first you want to have a good high yield and quality product as your primary product from the use of conservation agriculture. Now, yield is a very tricky thing. It's not one aspect that determines the yield of a crop. You have to look at the resource capture of the crop, meaning how much water has the crop drawn from the soil, how much light has the crop intercepted, and then after intercepting the light and drawing the water from the soil, what is the conversion efficiency of those resources into dry matter? And after converting into dry matter, what is the partitioning out of the 20 grams of dry matter produced? How much goes into the non-productive or non-harvested part, and how much goes into the grain? There's also the issue of how have you managed your crop throughout the season? The weed control. How have you managed the pests and diseases? And all other things that come around looking after the crop from the time you plant, including when did you plant in that season if you are using rain-fed agriculture. And what inputs did you use? And what was the quality of each input that you used? The interaction, each one of these that you see there can be teased out into several other factors. But the interaction of all these would determine how much yield you get. Now, after you get your yield, what you want from there is the money. And that is another ball game, because the farmer usually does not control the market, especially the small-scale farmer. There are people who come and offer $1 per 50 kg bag of maize. This is a farmer who has 2-3 children. They need to go to school. He cannot wait for a better market. He will sell his product because he needs to attend and pay for certain goods and services. There's also the policy environment. And finally, the quality of the produce. So, moving forward, our conclusion, myself, and by the way, this is the most gender-balanced panel this today. Moving forward, what are the things that we are talking about? First of all, CA is a proven technology. It is not under debate. Secondly, conservation agriculture on its own cannot create the wealth. What we need to do is to focus on its wider environment under which CA is operating. The third conclusion is that partnerships are required among different institutions and different stakeholders. There is no one single institution that can deliver the required wealth or generate the required wealth on its own. Research also needs to deal with non-technical factors. I know I'm maybe eating into the discussion time, but let me just explain one thing. In November last year, I visited Malawi. I was with a colleague of mine, Samson Ojesi from Malawi, and Monica Murata from Zimbabwe. We were driving from Lilongwe to Chitedze research station. As we were going along the road, we saw these fields where there were portions where the land was covered with the maize stover, and there were other portions which had been cleared completely, and they were bent, the stover was bent, and people were working. On our way back into town, we stopped, and there were two men working in the field, and we asked them to say, what is the difference? We see this plot here, it's covered with the maize stover, and you have cleared and you've bent the stover, and now we are making ridges, what they call galauza in Malawi. The farmer, we were shocked. The answer from the farmer, he said, let's go to the plot that is covered with stover. We went there, then he opened up. He said, do you tell me I can buy expensive seed and come and put it here in a place where there are termites, and immediately my seed germinates, the termites will eat it. And by the way, this is technology for the lazy people. For me, I have the energy, I will continue making my ridges. That was the answer from the farmer. So there are a lot of social and cultural issues that we have to deal with, apart from the technical aspects of conservation agriculture. And finally, the policy environment. There is no technology that works outside the policy environment, and we have to deal with the policy environment if we have to create wealth from conservation agriculture. Thank you very much.